I bought my house when I was 26. I had spent years saving, working nonstop, and in the end, I paid for the whole place on my own. It was a three-bedroom house in a decent neighborhood. Nothing luxurious, nothing flashy, but it belonged to me. When my parents came over for the housewarming, they spent the entire visit pointing out how much space I had for just one person. My mom kept wandering from room to room, saying things like how it was such a waste for all those rooms to sit empty while I lived there alone. About a year later, my sister got engaged. After that, every conversation with my parents somehow turned into a comparison between the two of us. According to them, she was settling down the proper way, doing things the right way, all that nonsense. The wedding itself was small. I showed up, brought them a nice gift, and did my best to be supportive. But during the reception, my parents kept asking me when I was finally going to meet someone and stop focusing so much on material things. Apparently, owning a house made me look like some kind of shallow person in their eyes. After the wedding, my sister and her new husband moved into a tiny apartment, and that is when the constant complaining started. Every time we saw each other, it was the same story. The place was too small. The neighbors were loud, the building had problems, it just went on and on. Eventually, my parents began making these little jokes about how I should let my sister borrow a room since I had all that extra space. At first, I honestly thought they were kidding. I would laugh it off and change the subject. But the jokes kept coming, and after a while, they stopped sounding like jokes at all. Things really started getting worse after my mom came over to visit one day. She walked through the entire house, opening doors and stepping into every room, talking the whole time about how perfect each space would be for my sister and her husband. She pointed around like she was planning the layout. This room could be theirs. That one would make a great office. This bathroom is so much nicer than what they have right now. I told her to knock it off, but she just smiled like she was doing something helpful. Then my dad started giving me these speeches about family responsibility. According to him, the people who have more should help the ones who have less. Family is supposed to take care of each other. I told him everyone makes their own choices and has to live with the results of those choices. He did not like hearing that. He went quiet after that and barely spoke to me for the rest of the visit. A few months later, my sister's husband started having money problems. His income turned out to be a lot less stable than they expected, and suddenly they were struggling to keep up with rent. That was when my parents really started pushing. They began calling me more often, and every conversation circled back to the same thing. I had so much. My sister had so little. I should step in and help. One afternoon, I agreed to meet them for coffee, thinking we were just going to catch up. Instead, both of them showed up ready with what they called a proposal. They wanted my sister and her husband to move into my house. They told me I should look for a smaller place since I lived alone and supposedly did not need all that space anyway. The way they said it, you would think it was the most logical idea in the world. I told them no right away. I said the whole thing was ridiculous and there was no way I was giving up my house. My mom immediately started crying right there in the coffee shop, saying I was being selfish. My dad gave me this look like I had just insulted him to his face. They both kept pressing the issue, repeating that family should always come first and that this is what family members do for each other. I walked out of that coffee shop thinking that would finally put an end to the conversation. It did not. After that, they started calling and texting nonstop. My phone would light up all day with messages telling me to reconsider, to think it over again, and reminding me how disappointed they were in me. After 3 days of that constant harassment, I finally blocked both of them. I was done dealing with it. About a week later, they showed up at my house without any warning. My sister was with them. Apparently, they had told her that I had agreed to sit down and talk about the whole situation, which was a complete lie. What happened on my front porch turned into a mess. My sister started crying almost immediately, saying she did not understand why I was doing this to her. My parents started yelling at me about how ungrateful I was for everything they had ever done. I told them they needed to leave. My dad refused to move off the porch. He just stood there saying we were not finished talking yet. I pulled out my phone and told him if he did not get off my property, I was calling the police. Eventually, I got him to leave, but not before my mom screamed at me that I was a disgrace. 2 days later, my mom sent me this long message. She went on and on about how well I was doing financially and how I should just give the house to my sister because she needed it more. According to her, my sister was building a family now. She had a husband. She needed stability. The message ended with a line that really stuck with me. She wrote, "It is just a house to you, but it is a future for her." Like my home somehow meant less because I was not married. That was the moment I decided to respond. I went through all my records and started adding up every dollar I had spent helping my parents over the last 5 years. The gym membership I had been paying for my dad every month, my mom's car insurance that I had been covering, the property taxes on their house that I had paid for 3 straight years, the money they had borrowed and never paid back, birthday money, holiday money, emergency help, all of it. When I finished adding everything up, the total came out to more than $87,000. I sent them a long text with a full breakdown. Every payment I had made, every date, every amount. Then, right after that, I sent another message. I told them all financial support was ending immediately. The gym membership for my dad was canceled. I was no longer paying my mom's car insurance. I would not be covering their property taxes anymore. From that point on, they were on their own. My dad called me within an hour. He was furious. He demanded to know how they were supposed to afford everything now. I told him that if they felt comfortable asking me to hand over a $340,000 house, then they could figure out how to pay their own bills. He started yelling about disrespect and how entitled I was acting. Pretty soon I started getting calls and messages from aunts, uncles, and cousins. Most of them were asking what had happened. Some of them flat out accused me of being heartless. A couple of months went by and then my parents' property taxes came due. They could not pay them. My mom ended up calling me from her work phone, which I had not thought to block. She was crying and saying they might lose their house. She begged me to help just this one time. I told her they had 3 years to get their finances in order while someone else was paying their bills. They could have been saving money, fixing their situation, and preparing for this moment. Instead, they got comfortable letting me handle everything. My dad made one last attempt. He sent me a message saying he had been thinking about things and realized maybe they had pushed too far. He suggested we start fresh and forget that any of this ever happened. The message was written carefully, like he was trying to sound calm and reasonable. But there was no apology, no acknowledgement of what they had actually asked me to do, no recognition that they had tried to guilt me into giving up my house. They just wanted to smooth things over so the money would start coming again. My reply was simple, one word: no. I know some people think I should have just gone along with it and kept the peace, but I worked hard for everything I have. I made sacrifices and smart choices to get where I am. My sister made choices too. She chose to get married, she chose where to live, she chose a partner with an unstable income, and my parents made their own choices as well. They chose to live beyond their means while someone else covered the difference. They chose to feed my sister's sense of entitlement. They chose her happiness over showing me even basic respect. They chose manipulation instead of having an honest conversation with me. The last thing I heard was that my parents were scrambling to keep up with their bills. My sister, meanwhile, was still complaining about her apartment. Every now and then, people try to make me feel guilty about the whole situation. Usually it is distant relatives who were never around for any of the actual drama, but still seem to have plenty of opinions. They say things like how hard it must be for my parents at their age to worry about money, or how my sister is struggling and I could help so easily. I just remind them that I did help. For years, I helped more than anyone even realized, and the thanks I got for all that support was them demanding I hand over my house. So no, I do not feel bad about it, not even a little. My mom had to switch to a cheaper car insurance plan. From what I hear, her new rate is actually much higher because of her driving record. Apparently, I had been covering a pretty expensive policy all that time. My sister, from what I have been told, spent a lot of time complaining about how unfair everything was. She said she was just trying to build a life, and that I had made things so much harder for her. Never mind the fact that she was an adult who could have planned better and made different decisions. It was easier for her to blame me. My sister was always the golden child in the family, the one who could never do anything wrong. I was the one expected to be responsible, the one who was supposed to succeed, but somehow my success was meant to be shared, while her struggles were everyone else's problem to fix. When I bought my house, my parents' reaction should have been pride. Instead, their first thought was how it could benefit my sister, like I had bought a family asset instead of my own home. The house is worth more now than when I first bought it. The neighborhood improved and property values have gone up. If I had given it to my sister the way they wanted, I would have handed over a property that is appreciated by hundreds of thousands of dollars, all because she got married. It has been about 6 months since I made my original post and cut my parents off completely. I figured I would give an update since some people were asking what happened, and honestly, a few interesting things have come up since then. First, my aunt reached out to me last month. She was not calling to lecture me or take my parents' side. She just wanted to tell me what had been going on. Apparently, my parents had to take out a loan just to pay their property taxes. The interest rate on it is terrible because their credit is a lot worse than anyone realized. As it turns out, they have been living way beyond their means for a long time. My aunt started digging into things after she got suspicious about why they were suddenly so desperate for money. She found out they had been taking loans against their house for years. No one really knows what they spent the money on, but they were basically drowning in debt. The only reason they had managed to stay afloat for so long was because I had been covering their property taxes. Once I stopped paying them, the whole thing started falling apart. I am not going to lie, hearing that felt pretty good. Not in some revenge kind of way, but because it confirmed what I had been thinking. I had been supporting people who were making terrible financial choices, while at the same time demanding that I give up my own house. The nerve of that still blows my mind. The situation with my sister is even more interesting. My aunt told me she and her husband have been arguing nonstop about money. But here's the part that surprised me. Apparently, he had no idea about the whole house situation. My sister never told him she expected my house to just be handed over to her. When he finally heard about it through family gossip, he completely lost it. He could not believe she actually thought that was reasonable, or that she had been telling people I was the villain in the story. From what I hear, he has been looking for jobs in other cities. He wants to get away from my sister's family entirely. I cannot say I blame him. About a month ago, my sister tried contacting me again. She used someone else's phone since I had her number blocked. The message she sent was completely unhinged. She went on and on about how everyone's lives were falling apart, and somehow it was all because of my selfishness. According to her, I ruined everything by refusing to help when the family needed it. What is funny is she still does not understand the situation at all. In her mind, she is the victim simply because she did not get a free house. Never mind the fact that normal people do not expect their siblings to just hand over property. Somehow, it is all my fault. From what I hear, her marriage is barely holding together. Her husband has been sleeping on a friend's couch 3 nights a week. My aunt thinks he will probably file for separation soon. He is done dealing with my sister's victim mentality and the entitlement that comes with her family. He thought he was marrying someone reasonable and realized too late what he had gotten into. But the most interesting part is what happened with my parents' house. They ended up selling it. Even with the loan they took out, they could not afford to keep it. They had to move into a rental, and from what I have heard, it is a lot smaller than the place they used to have. My sister has apparently moved back in with them. Her husband is basically gone, and she cannot afford the apartment by herself. She only works part-time and barely contributes anything to the household expenses. So now my parents are stuck living with her, and according to my aunt, all 3 of them are miserable. They created the entire situation themselves, but they still blame me. According to the family gossip, I am the reason their lives fell apart. If I had just helped the way family is supposed to, none of this would have happened. The amount of mental gymnastics it takes to believe that is honestly impressive. I also heard that my parents and sister spent the holidays alone in their rental. Nobody wanted to host them or include them in their plans anymore. They had burned too many bridges and people were tired of dealing with the constant drama. Meanwhile, my life has actually gotten a lot better since I cut them off. I have more money, a lot less stress, and my relationships with other people have improved. I even started seeing someone new a few months ago, and things are going well. I am just a little careful now when the topic of family comes up. I keep things light until I know someone better. So that is the update. No reconciliation, no apologies, and definitely no happy ending for them.